Some young men are struggling to become adults. That's what I was told when I moved back to the United States in 2021. Now, I didn't exactly know what that meant. But after about a year, I discovered that at the root of it is the idea that there's this swath of young men who are willing to let others take care of them what seems to be indefinitely. So that cycle of being a boy and your parents taking care of you, then becoming a teenager where you take on more responsibility, and then becoming a young adult where you take about probably 90% to 100% responsibility, and then later you are responsible for others. Well, that's come to a halt for these guys. Well, in today's podcast, I interview a childhood friend who had plenty of struggles when he was growing up. And in the first part of the podcast, he gives a blueprint of how to become a man. And in the second part of the podcast, we discuss how he's struggling with helping his son become an independent man. I want to start with a story, and that story is when and you've told this story before, about when you were, I think we were in second grade, and I punched you in the nose. So I'm just going to start with that. So we're going to do a little back history since we've known each other for a long time. But frequently when we're out with people, you'll tell people, "Yeah, he punched me in the nose," and I'll go, "Well, I was 7."
It was the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yes.
We were playing soccer at Holy Cross out in the blacktop. And to be honest, your team was losing and you were getting a little upset about it. So you decided you were just going to pick up the ball, walk over in front of the goal and kick it in. And I'm like, "Hey, you can't do that." And you said, "Oh, yeah? Oh, boom!" And down I went. So.
Now, I punched you in the nose. Did you get a bloody nose?
Oh, yeah, gusher.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you probably don't remember that part.
Yeah, the nice thing about being 7 is, pre-puberty, everybody's about the same size. So whoever has the fiercest temper gets to throw punches, and you don't have to worry about it. I just remember getting into, say, 7th grade, 8th grade, and going, "Oh, I'm still skinny," and people that I once punched probably could just kick my ass. So I need to be wary of that.
I mean, you were bigger than me, but I was like, "Oh, he's crazy."
And crazy goes a long way.
Yeah,
that goes a long way. So the story with Father Brad, Carlotta Burns, going to your apartment.
Carlotta Burns was our classmate, kind of a quiet girl.
And how old were you? Sorry, how old were you guys? How old were we?
This was that last house out on Lombard, so it was kind of in the hood, a little worse out there by Terminal 4. And so not a nice neighborhood, and not a nice house, of course. And she came with Father Brad. I don't remember what was going on, but anyway, she came over with Father Brad, and she just kind of looked around with this face like, "What is this?" And she finally goes, "You guys live here?" And actually, my brother Jim was there. I don't know if I told you, but he looked at her and he goes, "No, this is our summer house," or whatever season it was. But just kind of a revealing, like, what was that? What did that mean? That was probably 5th grade or something like that.
I don't remember how many brothers you had, but you were growing up in a house with just your mom, right?
Yeah. 5 older brothers and 1 younger sister.
Right, Angela. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how would you describe the financial situation in the household?
Zero money, zero food sometimes, zero heat sometimes, bouncing around, sometimes family members lived with us. Sometimes we lived with other family members. There was always somebody who was out of a house. So, luckily the family was big, so there was usually somewhere to go.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we went to Holy Cross together, and then you moved out across town to Beaverton, right off Denny Road. And what happened then was you continued to take the bus across town, and I believe it was in seventh grade, and you started basically living with my family every second week.
Yeah, quite a lot. It was easier, obviously, than taking the 2 hour bus ride. Um, it was different. I should have, my mom was not, she was struggling. She usually worked all night long and slept all day.
Right.
And so her parenting wasn't, and she was by herself. So, I mean, none of us knew. None of us knew what to do. I was probably too afraid to go to a public school, the one out here by us
Right.
now. It was, anybody was, but finally we did in the seventh grade. It was a weird deal. And just to go back to even the beginning of Holy Cross, just to tell you,
Okay.
I don't know if I've told you this. Um, my mom our older brothers were trouble. They got in a lot of trouble. The four older.
Right.
Jim, she took up to Holy Cross. She put him on the steps and said, "Go in." That's it. I didn't know this till later. I was probably in the fourth grade where somebody probably said, "Oh, the tuition you have to pay here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So both Jim, me, and Angela, my mom never paid anything.
Well, that's the nature of Catholic schools, though, is that they have sliding fees. So, for example, when I went to Jesuit, I took when I went to high school and took the bus ride out towards where you lived, was that we had a sliding. I mean, there's a sliding scale. I mean, with the Catholic schools, generally they always will get you in. I mean, there's never. Well, I can't say never, but the Catholic schools are very good about if you want to go here, you're going to go here. And so that's a standard, but I didn't realize
Okay.
your mom put you at the steps. But
She didn't talk. She didn't talk to him. Not us. She didn't talk to him. I don't know if she talked to them about me and Angela, but Jim. She just like put him on the steps and said, "Go to school," and they just had to
oh
figure it out.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm certain, for example, that Greg Fremont and Chuck Fremont, they weren't paying any tuition.
That's
I
true.
mean,
I
they
guess I'm not
were.
an anomaly there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're growing up in the Columbia Villa housing project and with the single mom, and shout out for single moms who are raising their kids. And that's what I wanted to say about your mom. Yeah, but your mom was there showing up, raising you guys, and it may not, and she was working. And well, it may have appeared random to you because your mom always, this is when learned the word impose. Your mom, you would always show, you
I
would
was going to say
always,
this.
you were always going to say to me, you would always say to me, well, my mom just doesn't want to impose. Would it be imposing? And so that was this really common word. Like, no, you're not imposing. I didn't know what it meant, but I meant
Exactly.
that, yeah, but it's like, you're not imposing because
I'm
I don't
like,
know the,
I like.
don't know
What
the
am I even saying? My mom said I shouldn't impose. I'm like, oh, yeah. What is that?
No idea. No idea. So, no, it wasn't random. What it was a week would go by, and on my end, I would go to my mom and say, "Hey, I mean, Mike's been he's having to take the bus for the week. I mean, it's time to get him back here." And so I was clear in what I was doing was that every second week seemed to be reasonable, and then I that brings up my dad. My dad didn't give a shit because he wouldn't even be aware who was staying, who was not staying. I mean, there was kids around the house all the time. So you came out. You were living with us every other week, I promise, because I was lobbying for that on the weeks that you weren't there. Then you were living with my brother, me, my mom, and of course, Big Dick Ziglinski. What was it like living with my dad?
Oh, he was the greatest. I think your dad was the funniest person I ever knew. Um, he had us in stitches. He was so, he liked to get his drink on, so he would
Oh yeah.
get
Oh yeah.
it would get a little wild. Um, Often, your mom and dad would fight at night and then make up. So that was a pretty regular occurrence. But him and his shenanigans, just coming up with some kind of, it was like watching a bit or a skit with him. You know, watching him, we're sitting around the dinner table and he walks out with his pants down around his ankles and an empty toilet paper roll, going, "Who in the fuck left this?" And we are just dying laughing, trying to eat our dinner as he's putting on a show. But yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about him, everything was unedited with him. I mean, it was just he just told you
Oh yeah.
whatever was on his mind. His thing was he went to work. He went to work at Penwalt, which became Atachem. It's a chemical plant. They manufactured chlorine. I worked there a couple summers. He went there, and then when he came home, he put his lunchbox down. He went up to Don and Pat's, the tavern, three houses down. He came back at 5:35. He arrived back because my mom arrived at 5:40. She asked him if he'd been drinking. He denied it, which I never got because he did the same thing every day. And then they might have a fight. They may, sometimes they didn't. Most of the time they didn't. But when my mom wanted to pick one, she certainly did. And then my dad would go either fix cars the rest of the evening, or he was also the president of the Little League a lot of the years, or he would help out with any sports stuff. It was the sports director at the school. All this, as I say in my book, that he did this with the drink on, and so he was a mover, and he always had to be doing something, and he walked proud. I
Oh
would
yeah.
say,
He was a handsome fella. Big, muscular, giant calves.
yeah,
And again, funny, later for me, it was just like, I considered it like when he'd rip on you, it was like being ripped on by Don Rickles. It was an honor.
oh yeah, yeah. I've explained to the Irish slanging each other such a big thing, and of course Cian grew up with that because of me, but because of Irish culture, and that was just nonstop. And I remember I had a college friend over, and my dad came in and he just started ripping on me, and then she said, "Oh, I come from a family where I feel your pain. I come from a family where my dad's insensitive, and he does." And I was just going, "No, you're missing the point. This is how we actually speak to each other." I mean, if he comes in and if he doesn't call me, "Hey, you worthless piece of shit," something's up with my
What's wrong?
dad. Although, yeah, what is wrong? So I mean, that's just a constant. Oh yeah. So, and that was a constant also in the neighborhood and things of that nature.
Bad student. Not good. Um, I never liked it, never liked school, never fit in. I know I'm a smart guy, but I was just not school smart. And so I didn't even finish Beaverton. I didn't finish.
Right.
So I just got out and went to work and started working. And
Okay. So, what age do you drop out?
mm, 17 or 18.
Okay. And so you had gone how many years to high school? Did you drop out after your junior year? Or did you?
Junior, I think mid junior.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in the middle of, and then what do you do?
I I was working. I was already part time, after or around school, bus boy at a restaurant,
Right,
and then I just put in, 8-10 hours regular
right.
days for
Oh,
that.
right. So here's something I've never asked you is that coming from a poor family, and then at that time when you were working, did you have a vision of the future? I just know that other people I know who have not grown up with money, some kids that I used to teach in New Orleans, for example, their thing was, I'm not going to be poor.
Yeah.
But or back at that point, was that even Was that something you were thinking about, or was like, hey,
I I was in my head kind of trained to believe I will always be poor.
oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I believe that. I never believed I didn't have a lot of self worth to me,
Right, right.
um, and I figured I would die young. And growing up in St. John's, there wasn't a lot of, at least who I was around. I don't know about you. Your parents were much better, and my mom was pretty good, but again, she was kind of always working and sleeping when
Right.
I'm awake, and so it's no, I didn't have a lot of positive. The future, really didn't think about it.
So I didn't realize that you had a bleak perspective of the future, but you went and you started working. And then what happened next? Tell me, give me a little bit of a history of your work, of the back history of your work. So you
Um,
go out, you drop out of school,
yeah,
and then you start working as a bus. I mean, you're working as a busboy.
yeah,
I think when you dropped out of school, I'm pretty certain that you were already working anyway, because I know you wouldn't have had any money from the family.
no, yeah, working. That was the only money I had. In fact, I would often give up a lot of money to my mom because she
Right.
needed it. She would talk like, "Oh, I'm going to borrow. I'm going to pay you back," and it never came back, but that was
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
Um,
It's your mom.
yeah. So that, and then after that, I went to a place that processed like coupons. People
Right.
mail in coupons kind of stuff. So
Right.
probably did that for like a year, and then went to a place that warehoused and distributed like LPs and tapes and videos.
Okay. And so you started, if it's fair to say, you started at the bottom and worked your way up. Is that
Yeah, bottom of an 8-person company.
okay? Well,
Yeah,
and how big's the company now?
we're 60 employees. Gone from we used to do a couple of million a year when we started. Now we're 25, 30 million
Wow.
a year. So
Right. Okay. And so so tell me all the jobs that you did at this company. One was being the delivery.
yeah, so driver, and then that the stuff that you have to carry is heavy. So it
Oh
was
yeah.
good for me when I was young, but it takes a toll after about 20 years.
Right.
So I started moving into the shop to do like build doors and run the machine that preps the doors and all that stuff. Do some receiving, things like that, things that are less strenuous.
Yes, less physically taxing.
Yeah, yeah. Is I have a bad back now and everything, but whatever. I finally took a job inside, which they were encouraging me to come in and do something. But so I finally did in '07
You worked there from, wait, since 97? Is that what you said?
from the current company. Yeah.
Okay. So from 97 and it's 2025. Now, if it would it be accurate to say that you are middle class, that you have a house in the suburbs, you have a good, a nice car, you have a boat that we sometimes go water skiing, and things of that nature. That future that you saw as incredibly bleak back when you were 17, 18, and having dropped out of school did
Yeah.
not come to fruition. Rather, that
No.
something else quite positive did.
No, I had a realization in my 20s that I'm not a dipshit, and
That's always a
I
good one.
I can do things, and really something I never would have done when I was young was think that you can do something with your mind to change your life,
Right.
and just to have a positive attitude. If you can envision something, I think you can make it happen. Now, I don't know. I think I could have tried harder and been more successful. I think I do enough, I do enough to have a comfortable life,
Hey, you've come a long way, and one of the things that you said to me recently was I may not know everything, and I may not be this or that, but I do know one thing: if you want to be successful, you show up, and every
Yeah.
day I show up.
That is it. My GM, my boss, just said that to me the other day. Because we're actually doing some layoffs right now. We're
Right.
having to tighten down from that great 2023. We had a subpar 2024, so it's just like, okay, we got to correct some things.
Right.
But he's looking at me. He's going, I really appreciate that you are here every day, and that you're here and you get all your work done. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what I got for you. So,
No, showing up is a big one. There's in fact, I'll send it on to you. I think you'd get a kick out of it. There's these two well-respected journalists, both went to one went to Oxford or Cambridge. I can't remember. He's English. Well, he has American citizenship, and then the other is a guy who went to University of Texas, and they extremely successful guys. And there's a podcast, something called similar to something with work in it, getting to work or something like that. And what was really interesting about both of these guys worked in fast food, and I worked at Taco Bell for 3.5 weeks, and I found it too demanding, and I went to a restaurant instead. So fast food is not easy. I'm not saying
yeah.
a restaurant's easier. But one of them was talking about how he worked for Burger King in Texas. I think it was for about a year and a half. And the other person who had gone to, like I said, Cambridge or Oxford, he had left school and secondary or high school here, and he ended up working at McDonald's. And and they were talking about what the value of work is, and what the value of, say, working in Burger King or McDonald's, and how challenging that stuff is. That one of the things that you definitely learn is that if people don't show up, other people have to take up the slack. And the person who was working at McDonald's says, I would end up spending an extra hour or 2 hours, and I would end up doing the mopping, but I was only supposed to be doing the mopping every second day and things of that nature. But showing up, you can't say enough about just showing up. And so that is that is the life lesson. If nothing else, show up.
I did learn, I understood clearly that my GM, again, he valued, I could see that he valued that almost above everything.
I mean, that applies not just to also jobs, but I've talked, Kian, my son, we've talked about this with friendships, is that when, you remember the movie Big Wednesday?
I don't think so.
Ah, well, you got it. It's a coming of age movie for guys. The guy who wrote it was also the guy who wrote and I think directed it. Also wrote Apocalypse Now.
Big Wednesday? Right.
John Milius. So
Okay.
I'll send it on to you. In fact, anyway, and so, but in Big Wednesday, this one of the guys of the circle of friends is drinking too much and is a bit of an asshole, and he's down on his luck, and he goes and he sees this the surf shop owner who's known him for years, and he asks him, "Well, how are your friends doing?" He goes, "No, they haven't talked to me. They're not. They're pissed off at me." And he says, "Well, when everything's going great, you don't need your friends. It's only when you're down when you need your friends." So, friendships, the friendships where people show up, no matter what, show up and tell you to get your shit together is the most important thing, I would say. So I came back here to the U.S. after 16 years in Ireland, and I was introduced to a term, failure to launch, and I hadn't been introduced to that term. And as it turned out, a friend of mine, and I'm going to be careful about who, I don't want to call any names out. And so I'm just going to say a friend of mine. A friend of mine, she had a son, or has a son, that wasn't becoming an adult. And for those in Ireland who don't know, failure to launch is basically saying that often young men are not becoming adults. And so it was difficult. I soon discovered that there were plenty of young men not becoming adults and struggling. And it was this big difference between Irish culture and American culture. And Irish culture is still where back when we were growing up, that when you got done with high school, you knew it was time to go to work full time, or you went into the military, or you went to college, but you were doing something and you wanted
out
to do something. Yeah. The thing about it was that you wanted to move out. That was the thing. That was, choosing the comfort of having somebody pay the rent or choosing complete independence. You wanted independence. So you were one of the parents who I ended up talking to, and you were, telling me that you have a failure to launch child. In fact, your son went to a failure to launch camp or something like that. So I want to get into that a little bit and talk to me about when did things start happening? What was the problems? And then give me some history with it.
He was an A student at Tualatin High School. He
Right.
did fine. He had a good circle of friends. And then most of the friends went to the U of O,
Right.
which he wanted to do. So he went to the U of O. In his first year was great. He got his
Right.
A's, and he needed to hit that high grade just to get a help on his tuition from the U of O, and all that was, everything was going great. And then he got into that second year, and it just took which was weird because as a parent of somebody who's in college, it's not like high school. I'm calling up the college going, "Hey, I want to talk to somebody," and they're like, "Hey, you can't talk to anybody. He's an
Right.
adult."
Right.
So I'm like, "Oh, what is okay? I get it." So he was fibbing to me about how things were going. "I'm gonna fix it. Don't worry, everything's fine."
Right.
Meanwhile, I'm pouring money into his education there at U of O,
Right.
which was kind of frustrating.
Right.
So then he finally admits, of course, that is just going downhill, and I need to get him back here. And he then from there on, he was just in this depression and anxiety that was tough to control. He was pretty much just home working here, and he went to Fred Meyer and worked for a while, and then he did Renewal by Anderson door-to-door stuff for a while. He did a couple of things, but always in this kind of depression that he couldn't seem to handle. Of course, he's also smoking weed and drinking, probably more weed than drinking, but not helpful.
And that's not going to help.
No, it's not. It's a depressant.
Yeah.
So he struggled through that, and I had to help him, always helping him with money for car, for whatever it is he needs, for food, here and there, but of course with a long discussion about what's going on, trying to get to the bottom of it. But
And where's he living at this point?
so, well, right now, today,
No. I mean, where at this point in time?
well, he's at my house.
Yeah, but
Then I'm sorry.
then. I mean, at this point in time in the story.
Bouncing between, he living with me and his mom, but his mom moved up to Spokane for a while, so he was with me.
Okay.
And then he, at that point, just up and down, struggle, mostly down, and it's just frustrating to watch as a dad. But
Right.
We get to about 2 years ago, and he is living. I don't remember where he was living at that point, but we noticed that he FaceTimed me. He was out fishing,
Right.
and he FaceTimed me, and this is a different twist, and I think I've shared it with you, but
Yeah, I think I know the story, but go
well,
ahead.
he went into, he was all of a sudden he's on FaceTiming with me, and he is just walking around talking to everybody out on the shore on the Columbia River, and he's fishing. He's like, boop, boop, hey, how you doing? Hey, and he's just like, I'm like, what is going on here? This is not right. Ryan's mellow,
Right.
chill,
Good times on the river.
and he was just, hey, how you doing, pop, pop, as he's talking to me, and
Right.
I'm like, what in the hell? And I realized that he was in a manic,
Oh yeah.
bipolar situation
Yeah.
because I
Manic
saw it.
state.
I
Yeah.
saw it in Shannon's dad, and so then he was just kind of a little wild for a while. I think his mom didn't want to believe it, but he was a little wild for a while, and then not too long after that, I don't get on social media much, but my daughter does, who was relaying to us. She's like, he's on Instagram or whatever, out driving around the middle of the night, driving around to our old houses, and just talking on his phone, and just like pulling up in people's driveways where we used to live, things
Right.
like that, and just probably drinking and smoking weed and driving around in the middle of the night,
Which again
videoing.
does not help. The weed and the weed and the alcohol do not
No,
help. It's a message I do want to
yeah, no,
make sure we're conveying.
it was a wild
Mental
deal.
problems and weed and weed and alcohol,
Yeah,
not a good mix.
no, it was wild. When I knew he was doing that, obviously I knew he was a danger to himself or anybody else out there in the world. So I finally talk him into getting over here to my house,
Right.
and he comes in and he's still in that state of just crazy happy. We're talking. He's like he's going to start businesses. He's like, will you help me invest and and all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh boy. And so he wouldn't calm down, and he did set his keys down. So I pocketed his keys, and
Right.
he's trying to leave now, and he's trying to find his keys. And I'm like, I don't know. So finally, he's out of hand, and he's getting angry now. So I finally call. I can't handle him, so I call the cops to come and take him,
Right.
which was hard.
Right.
So they talk to him. They come over, get their take from us. They go talk to him. They diagnose the situation. They put him in cuffs and take him off.
Right.
So he ends up at St. Vincent.
But you got to do the hard stuff as parents.
Yeah, that sucked.
You're raising your kid. There, you're not. As I always say to Kian, as I always say to Kian, my son. Look, first you're my son. If there's any friendship that will develop as we're adults, we'll get there. But if you're an asshole or you're acting a particular way, I'm calling you out. If you don't like
Yeah,
me, I can accept that.
yeah. He gets hauled off to St. Vincent Hospital and he's in their psych ward. I don't know, for his condition, and then we really couldn't even talk to him for like 5 days. Actually, he had access to call us. We couldn't call him, but he could call us.
Right.
And he would call and just rip into us like he never would. You fucking assholes! You know what the fuck you're doing? You're a bunch of idiot. I mean, just making his sister cry, making his mom cry, and I know it's a bunch of BS, but
Hey, I always say it's a good sign that if they're in a place that they would particularly not like to be, and there's a struggle and they're getting angry at you, that's a good sign.
yeah,
Because if they were saying, "Hey, this is wonderful," that I would then I would be suspicious about what's going on there. But yeah, he's pissed because things are not going his way.
yeah. He was getting a little scared in there because he was around real crazy people. He was just like, finally he stops. He's like, Dad, this lady across from me thinks I'm the devil. She thinks I'm the devil, and she was real crazy.
Well, I would just say on that note, just insert that there's different level of crazies. So,
It's true.
and I don't remove myself. I mean, which by the first part one of the book, Roundabouts and Firewood, a mental health approach for Irish guys and anybody else who is into the culture of action, that I make the case about how crazy I was. So there's different levels. So when Ryan's saying there's real crazy people, he may have actually been in the category of crazy people, and that's
Yeah,
not a judgment. I'm saying I'm in that category.
I called you
But
crazy
anyway.
earlier. we got him out of there. They let him out, even though wasn't at the level of mania that he was, when we put him in there, but he's not himself still.
Right.
So he was starting to kind of manipulate us, and unfortunately I can be manipulated by my kids.
There's not a parent who can't be manipulated by their kids. I mean, just as growing up when so Kian's mom and I split up when he was 2, and I would even tell Kian, look, if you want something, just tell me that your mom told me you can't have it. Because I'm getting it for you then. Because she and I were going to war over, when you're divorced, and particularly when they're younger and stuff. And it's anyway, you get so petty. Yeah. And I was the king of pettiness. And so if he said I can't eat this, blah blah blah, and then I might be lactose intolerant. Like, all we're eating for the next 5 days is ice cream. So yeah, I mean, there's no way. So I would tell him, hey, it's an easy thing, just tell me. And then when sometimes he would say things to me, and I'd say, hey, are you just trying to get that? Because you could just be more direct at this point. You don't need to manipulate me. But anyway, yeah. Kids do manipulate parents, and we do fall for that manipulation, consciously or unconsciously.
So he's lost his wallet, he's lost his phone, he doesn't have his key to his car, he doesn't know what happened the night before, or how he ended up in Bend by himself. Just wildness. But
these are things that after he's gone through some mental challenges, you've called him, you had to call the cops, bring him over, and he's been swearing and cussing at you.
This is a month later now.
This is a month later. So this is the message these are the messages that you want to hear after he has gone down to the wedding. Yes.
So yeah, and what he did was he left his car. He rode to Bend with a friend. He left his car in Northeast Portland.
Okay.
So he calls me and he goes, "Hey, I'm on my way back." He's still in his he's like, "Hey," and I can't forget this. He goes, "Hey, Daddy-O, hey, here's the deal. Hey, I lost my keys, so I just need you to go to my apartment, get my other key, and meet me in Northeast Portland." And I'm like, "Fuck you." I said, "You're going to figure this out. You are going to figure this out." What? And then he kind of gets mad. But, here's the deal, Daddy-O. And it's like, oh, man.
Daddy-O.
Just dropping that Daddy-O on me, I was just steaming. So he had to figure that out. He had to go get his own key and, to figure it out. It's just like, oh, my God. Anyway. So it was still a little crazy, and it took him, it took a while to come off that. It took months to come off that bipolar high.
Right.
So from there, it was struggle here and there. He went and lived with his mom for a long time. So all he did was apparently sit in his room and watch his phone or play games or whatever. So not good.
And right there, that is a model for the worst thing to do. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm just going to speak for guys. That's the worst thing for guys. The worst thing for them to do. Not doing things, not participating in things. That's where there are huge problems. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so go on.
He was probably up there for like a year. Of course, checking in. Go get a job, go do something, go exercise, get out. And all this stuff, and all the stuff that you're supposed to tell your kids, and
all the things that they should be doing.
Yeah.
One of the conversations that we had, or one of the things we were talking about, was that you had kind of accepted people saying, well, what he needs is this, what he needs is understanding, what he needs is this and this, and that you were conflicted about that, meaning that, okay, does he really need this, or isn't it just a point of, you gotta, as we've talked about, you got to show up, you got to go to work, you got to have structure in your day. You're going to have to work through things. Yes, you have problems. See a therapist, fine, but you got to participate in life. And that you have to have, and there's got to be expectations, and you have to fulfill those expectations. Am I wrong in that? Because I thought
Yeah.
that's what we had talked about. That
Yeah. I mean,
you were standing back a little bit, and then you finally said, "The hell with that." You're moving in and coming to work.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think you just got to attack it. I mean, for me, I, I, and I think it's a correct thought that, you need to keep yourself busy. If you give yourself too much time to think and think about your past and think about all these things that could stress you out, I mean, just one thing is keep yourself busy. So yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to get him to do, trying to get him to work out, trying to get him to work, and look toward something, any goal, a goal toward buy a new car or something, no goals for him. So that's where he was. And it was hard to get him, first hard to get him here, after that stretch up with his mom, and then hard to get him into work. But I
Right.
really had to threaten him, which I've told you. I mean, it's, I gave him about a week here, and then I kept saying, you got to call my operations manager and get an interview and get in here. And, he, kept going, okay, yeah, I will. Oh, I'm not ready. I'm not quite ready. Not quite ready. And then finally I was like,
Yeah, it's always down the road. It's always, when does that ever happen? The friend of mine whose son lives with his dad, hasn't worked, I think, almost 2 years now, but he'll soon be 28. And he had told his mom that, well, when I'm 30, that's when I'm really going to get going.
yeah,
But that's quite a plan. You're going
yeah.
to not work for 4 years, and then you're suddenly going to turn it on.
Mhm.
No, and putting things off, procrastinating, never helps.
Yeah.
In fact, one might say that could be a huge part of the problem.
Yeah. I texted him and I said, hey, have you texted my operations manager? And he's like, yeah, no, I'm not ready. This is text. So I just got up from my desk, drove home, walked in the door, shocked him, and said, you're calling him today, and
Right.
started going down that path. And we argued about it for about 20 minutes, and I thought I had him convinced to do it. And he finally just, after a kind of a pause, he went, yeah, I don't think I'm ready. And I said, then you need to get out. Which was really hard because I don't want to kick my I don't want to kick my son out.
Right.
So in the meantime, he's texting, I think, his mom and his sister, and of course, I immediately get a call from his sister, my daughter, and she's like, "Dad, come on," and take it easy on him. Don't just kick him out because he's not going to have anywhere to go. And I'm kind of. I feel like I'm kind of it's not an empty threat because I would have made him do it. Go. Now I would have kept tabs on him and understand what's happening. But finally, his
But
sister,
if
she's
I
like,
if I can, you're at a position at that point where it's come to a head that you are going to have to do something for your child to go in the direction of becoming an adult, or they're not going to change. And you have to and it's going to be a struggle for you as a parent, but you're well aware that if I just continue on this path, saying, okay, yeah, when you're ready and when you're comfortable, that'll be fine. It's just gonna. I mean, you're not gonna. You're just gonna go backwards and backwards and backwards. And so, yeah, you had to do that. If you don't do that, if you don't have a culture of expectations, the kid's going nowhere.
so yeah, I threatened him to pack up his car and leave, and he started doing it. He was packing up. At the same
Right.
time, he's talking and to his mom and his sister, and of course, his sister gets a hold of me. I didn't want to talk to his mom quite yet, but his sister, I'm talking to her, and she's just like, Dad, she's only been there a week. I'm like, yeah, okay. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, but
Finally,
it's not a week that it's been a problem.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, I went ahead and pulled the idea that his mom and his sister are the good cop and I'm the bad cop. So I walk in and I go, how much time do you need to give my operations manager a call? And he said, I was waiting to hear like a month. And he goes, a week? And I go, perfect, fine. In a week, you need to call him and set up a meeting. So the funny part to that was a Tuesday. The funny part to that was I get home Monday from work and I go, did you give him a call? And he goes, you said a week. He had one more day.
He
I'm like,
he has a stopwatch on.
oh my God.
24 times 7. That's not it, Dad. That's not it.
Kind of funny, but I said, call him tomorrow, get it done. Which he does. He does. Calls him. He was in that week for an interview and he started working like the next Monday. So,
And I want to say, I mean, that worked out, but it's my experience, not just as talking to contemporary American parents, but to having worked as a teacher for 30 plus years, that when people procrastinate, it never helps. And so
right.
if they're saying, you know your son better than I do, and you had trusted that, but they will take, when they're procrastinating like that, and they're in that anxiety zone where, all these things can happen if my anxiety is going to dictate my life. That when if you give them 3 days, they're going to take 3 days. If you give them a day, they'll take a day. And so it's exactly what happens. So the longer you give them, the longer they procrastinate.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that worked out because he started out pretty successfully. He came in, I get up, I'm out of here at about 5:30, quarter to 6. And, he was doing that with me. He was coming in with me, follow me in his car. And,
Right.
it worked out pretty good. He was pretty happy. And I kept telling him, we have a lot of good people. They're cool. Everybody you're going to be around is really cool and supportive. And our company is very supportive and all this stuff. And my GM and my operations manager, like I said, they know what's going on and
Right.
they want to help.
Right.
So he comes to PMI and he's really good for the first couple of months, I believe. And then there's a calling, and then there's another calling. Cause now he's coming in just after me. I would leave
Right.
before him and he would come in 15, 30 minutes later. So then the call-ins started becoming a little bit more frequent. Again, they're giving him a pretty long leash because he's my son.
Right.
So he didn't. It was about once a month, probably, I would say, that he would call in, and then here at the end, a few months back, he missed like a week.
Right.
And this was a problem. And so, and of course they're ready to support him and they're like, what do you want us to do? And I'm, and so, my company's being cool about it. So finally, he's talking about, I think that's not where I want to work, so I'm back to, then you got to go, stuff.
Right.
So he's really struggling. He can't come in. The depression's got a grip on him, and he can't handle it. And so somebody, I think it was a friend of his, one of his best friends. His mom is kind of in this field, I think, and she knew of a place up in Everett, somewhere up near Seattle.
Right.
That is a place that they either heard good things about or they know firsthand or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, he's been up there. In fact, he's coming back today after being up
Right.
there for about 6 weeks.
Oh, I didn't realize that he'd been
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, I knew this would be new to you. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, he's coming back today. In fact, I just got a text. He's probably telling me he's on his way.
Oh, and just to interject, one of the things that I just finished a series on cognitive distortions, which is the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy. And and it's always a great place to start if you're ever dealing with anxiety or depression. And then you can find, if you think, hey, this does actually make sense, so then go find a therapist and work with that. So
Yeah,
it's like I said, but therapy is just the 1 hour a week where you meet the person. And I know I'm reiterating this point, but the rest of the time is you got to do the work. So anyway,
right.
so hopefully he's coming
Yeah,
back. Hopefully he was doing the work there. And then things that I don't know if he did cognitive behavioral therapy, but I'm just saying that whatever works for you works. Because of all the things that Mike and I talked about, I thought that the best way to end this podcast was to take a clip from the previous podcast, the one in which I interviewed Jonathan, the young man who has dealt with his own mental health challenges. What is the message about the necessity to help yourself when it comes to mental health issues?
I feel like, as we said with therapy, it's someone there to give you a few tools to use. But like as I say, in gym, the only person to better yourself is going to be yourself. Like especially with your mental health, that's your brain, that's your mental health. Someone might be, I don't know, they might not want to help you to an extreme, but also it's only going to be you that's going to better yourself. And there's no one else that's going to put in the work. You need to put the work in, and if you don't put the work in, you're not going to see any results.